We go. Hi, welcome to Bible Q&A. I know there's no background. It's very confusing. You're distraught. I understand. It's all right though. I mean, aside from the fact that I completely blend into the thing, and this is suddenly a very, very poor fashion decision. Oops. So, question today. Let's do it. Should Christians pay taxes? What did Jesus mean by render unto Caesar? Render unto Caesar. Well, in case you don't know what that is, there is a part of the Bible that's accounted for in 3 of the Gospels, actually, that discusses this incident that Jesus had where the Pharisees, the religious teachers of the day, challenged Jesus about paying taxes to the Roman Empire. It's all over the place, and we'll actually touch on all of it, but Matthew 22 is a good place to go. I like Matthew's gospel because it's the first. I like Luke's more, but sometimes I think Matthew, he just has a certain touch. Something about it, I like the way it's laid out. But anyway, my personal scruples aside, let's dig into it here a little bit. Paying taxes, Matthew chapter 22, verse 15, out of the CEV version, the Cure version, yes. We have our own Bible, be afraid. The Pharisees got together and planned how they could trick Jesus into saying something wrong. Saying something wrong. They sent some of their followers and some of Herod's followers to say to him, "Teacher, we know that you are honest. You teach the truth about what God wants people to do, and you treat everyone with the same respect, no matter who they are. Tell us what you think. Should we pay taxes to the emperor or not?" Jesus knew their evil thoughts and said, "Why are you trying to test me, you show-offs? Let me see one of the coins used for paying taxes." They brought him a silver coin, and he asked, "Whose picture and name are on it?" "The emperor's," they answered. Then Jesus told them, "Give the emperor what belongs to him, and give God what belongs to God." His answer surprised them so much that they walked away. So this is it's an interesting passage, and sometimes I think this is more about like the challenge than even the question, you know? It's just like there's so much setup talking about, you know, who's challenging Jesus, why they're challenging him, how they did it, and then the question's just sort of there. And I mean, Jesus is still right, he still wins out on this one, but it seems like this is about kind of explaining where the opposition against Jesus was coming from. That said, though, a lot of people focus on the taxes question because, well, as they say, there are only two things in life that are certain: death and taxes. Taxes are this unavoidable thing. We just have to do it. Why? Because it's part of living in a society where we want to have nice things like roads and power lines and infrastructure of, you know, varying degrees of excellence. The more taxes, the better those things are. The less taxes, the less those things are. This is kind of how it works out. Taxes are the money that we pay to the government. It's sort of like a fee for living here, you know? And the more money you make or the more things you buy, the more taxes you pay into the system. It's just how it's set up. So, that said, and don't quote me on any of that, I ain't no economics major. Please. A lot of people have to ask that question, well, you know, is Jesus saying here that we don't have to pay taxes or that we do have to? What's Jesus saying here? What's going on? So let's break it down a little bit. So they ask, should we pay taxes to the emperor or not? Let's not mince words here. This is a very politically charged question. It's obvious even from a basic reading of the Bible that the Jews do not like Rome. They don't like Rome because Rome came in and conquered them. The Jews at the time believed that their destiny was to be their own nation. They were God's chosen people, and if they were being occupied by a foreign force of some sort, then they were under some sort of judgment or, you know, other issues at large. The point is for the most part, they want to be independent. They don't want to have to deal with this. And they especially didn't like the Romans because of, well, you know, how cruel they were, tax collectors and soldiers and, you know, being treated like second-class citizens. Not very fun stuff. So, because of this, a lot of the Jews in Jesus' day really had it out for Rome, did not like them. Some of them were even violent about it. Indeed, one of Jesus' disciples was even called a zealot, which was someone who wanted to bring down the Roman government in Judea for religious reasons, thus zealotry. But this is a very politically charged question. What they're trying to do is they're trying to trap Jesus, because they're saying to themselves, you know, let's trick Jesus into saying something wrong. So what they're trying to do is they're really trying to say, let's get Jesus to say that the government should be paid taxes. Then we can go around and say, ha, look, Jesus is a friend of Rome. Or Jesus says, don't pay taxes. Now he's on the people's side, but then it gets turned around into a thing of, oh, Jesus is not a friend of Rome. How about that? Then they can tell Herod, and suddenly Jesus is in jail for, you know, political sedition or everything. And I'll just say this, just a little comment. There's a lot of stuff going on today in terms of politics, like right now today, over the last few weeks. There's been a lot of stuff happening. You can tell just by turning on the news how dicey politics can be. So this is where they're trying to trap Jesus. Anyway, so Jesus manages to get out of it by acknowledging that since the emperor's name is on the coin, it belongs to him. But then by saying, give God what belongs to God. I think what Jesus is doing here is, one thing, he's proving them wrong. And what he's trying to do, and what that does is it illustrates, you know, that the question itself wasn't really meant to be right or wrong. It was just meant to trap him. But I think what Jesus also says here is a bit of an important lesson for us today. And what that lesson is that if we live in a country and we're citizens of that country, then, well, we need to act like it. We don't get to basically just break off and do our own thing as Christians. It's kind of that whole phrase, be in the world but not of the world. It's so cliche, I know, but it's cliche because it gets repeated a lot because there's a lot of truth in it. And cliche things get repeated so much that they kind of lose their meaning. But if this thing wasn't cliche, it would apply here. Be in the world but not of the world. Excellent example of where that pans out is in Romans, where Paul talks about taxes. He says, but you should obey the rulers because you know it is the right thing to do, and not just because of God's anger. You must also pay your taxes. The authorities are God's servants, and it is their duty to take care of these matters. Pay all that you owe, whether it is taxes or fees or respect and honor. Let love be your only debt. If you love others, you have done all that the law demands. So it's interesting because I kind of see an echo of Jesus' words here, you know. Paul says, give them their due. They want their money, give them their money, okay? It is their system. It's their currency. This is how they operate. And give all that you owe. And he even goes further and says, give them respect and honor if that's what you owe. Hello. But then he goes on to say, let love be your only debt. Well, loving others is tied up in, well, the greatest commandment. Love God with all your heart, mind, strength, soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. So then Paul turns it back around and says, let your only debt be to God. And that debt is your life. And that debt is the way that you live your life. And I think that's how it plays out. So do we have to pay taxes as Christians? I think so. I think I can say confidently, yes, you do. Why? Because that's just part of being a good citizen. And one of the things that we have to understand is that even if the government is completely corrupt and wrong, and maybe even evil, that doesn't change the fact that, that if we owe taxes, we owe taxes. And the honorable thing to do, the action that has the most integrity is to pay up. It's just the way it is. Death and taxes, right? It's kind of inevitable. Plus, you know, the IRS might come after you. They'll sue you. They'll take more of your money. They may even throw you in jail. You might say, well, how can God be served in those things? He might be able to be. But I think at the end of the day, we're better off. Paying our taxes allows us to continue on with our life uninterrupted. So that's pretty much what I have to say about that. Do we have to pay taxes? Yes, we do. Pay your taxes. Not because you're a good citizen, but because you are willing to subject yourself to an authority. I mean, at the end of the day, if we can't even pay our taxes, how on earth are we going to have the integrity to follow God's commands? Maybe that's a bit of a controversial place to end it, but I'll end it there because I've been talking for almost 13 minutes now, and that's too long. Corey Lamb is coming on now, and I'll take follow-up questions in the chat room. I may even talk about them again, in which case I'll record again for all you internet people. But Corey Lamb, safe in your arms, right here on Remedy Live.